You can introduce us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma, and this is Mike, and we're Objective Secured.
That was very perky for a Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's what you get. Throwing it at me, but you introduce us.
Well, there you go. Live and learn.
Yeah, well, luckily no one's watching at the moment, so it's all good.
That is true. You can watch it in rewind, though, if anyone wants to pick it up now.
Don't bother.
We're going to talk a few things about WATC tonight. We're also going to talk FAQ tonight because that's obviously fallen in our laps in the last 48 hours. And
we're glad you're watching, Alan. Actually, no, I'm not. Well, I am now, but not for the.
You wait until that meme comes out with you on the whip from the last time. So we're going to talk a few interesting lists. I'm not going to spoil any of the sneakiness, but I just thought it might be nice to talk about some of the more unusual armies that we've got coming.
Yeah, interesting armies. So the idea is to talk about armies that, we're not suggesting that they're the best lists. We're suggesting that they're different lists, interesting lists, and
they're ones that stood out at least when I went through them all. And I wanted to kind of talk about them and give some props to the owners of those lists as well. So we picked out the top 5 with one on, or not top 5, but the most interesting 5 I spotted.
Well, the 5 that stood out.
And then we give an honourable mention as well.
Yeah.
So and then we're going to obviously start talking about a little bit about the FAQ. We're not going to go into too much depth because I think that's more of a podcast thing where we've got a chance to have it all in front of us. But it's certainly been a hot topic online for the last couple of days, and it's worth probably at least covering some of the big FAQ document stuff and just kind of giving some initial impressions on those as well. So why don't we kick it off with the WATC list, though, because they're probably the interesting component of the conversation, given that it is this weekend and I'm still painting.
So I'm still in denial a little bit that it is this weekend. So before we do, a couple of frequently asked questions. Do we have enough terrain for the tables? Yes, we do.
That's all organised.
So for all of our events, we make sure that our tables have between 25 and 33% of the table covered. This event will be no different to that, so you don't have to worry. There'll be line of sight blockers, and there'll be
there's area terrain and all sorts. So
is required.
And it's certainly something that we constantly try and improve and update, and hopefully that's evident when you come to events that we do put more and more work in each and every event as we try and improve the terrain.
2 tables worth of terrain just behind the camera that we're working on at the moment. So that's new terrain that some of you might have seen it a couple of decades ago.
I was going to say it's a long time ago now, but
yeah, we've got some people returning to the game that were, around back then, so you might recognise it, but we're just in the process of updating it and giving it some new life.
Well, the best part about this terrain for me is that it's actually from a long-time friend, family, I suppose, Jordan Gray and his old man, Bob Gray. Bob's now living abroad, and his son came to me and said, "Hey, we're not using this terrain anymore. Do you want it?" And this is stuff that...
Yes, we do.
This is stuff that I used to play on back in the early days of Outpost South when we first opened that back in, I want to say like 2002 or 2003. And it's cool to see it all again, and it's going to be coming out this weekend. We're going to be doing some updates to it. It might not be perfect, but it's certainly going to be a new set of terrain that no one will have seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
We're adding some bits to it. Michael refused to let me smash a tank today when I wanted to do that for a piece of terrain.
Who hits a classic Rogue Trader Rhino that is essentially intact with a hammer?
Me.
No, that doesn't happen. It's even got all the metal bits to turn it into a Vindicator. You do not hit that thing with a hammer. Jesus.
Well. So that's one of them. Another frequently asked question, will there be alcohol?
Yes, there will be.
Yes, there will.
Provided you are over the age of 18.
Yeah, you do have to be over the age of 18, and we will be having responsible service of alcohol throughout the event, so all that.
In other news, Emma passed the test to get her RSA, so she is now...
So I can now officially
serve you, which is great.
It'll be a new experience for me. And third question, will there be food? Yes, there will, and there will be gluten-free, vegan, and vegetarian options. And I did a post about that earlier. If you haven't seen it, jump on the Facebook page and have a look at that.
A lot of you guys have already started buying food from the buffet service, which is great because it means we can plan it in advance.
Yeah, makes it a lot easier for us.
There'll probably be a little bit more than we need for the weekend. So if you
No, we'll sort that out later. I know what you're going to say, so just
Well, there you have it. Moving on.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome to those just joining us. Harry, Matt, Bodie, nice to see you guys. So let's have a quick chat about these army lists. I'm going to start with the honourable mention first, though, because I think that's one that's caught a lot of people's eyes, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, so our honourable mention goes to Harry from Five Best Friends and Harry.
Yep. Now, I'm assuming there's a meme or some sort of joke that goes along with the name of the team, and I'm sure that
We
Harry's
hope so.
and I'm sure Harry's
Poor
okay with it.
Harry. But that's not why he gets an honourable mention. He gets an honourable mention for his 320-ish grots.
Yeah. Now, this is an army that I'm sure plenty of you have gone, oh my god, what the hell is that? And I even got a
Did you say that they were moving those grots around with a shovel?
I think there was talk of that at one point, or at least like a dustpan and brush type scenario.
Well, that's what I was imagining
Yeah.
with the shovel, and then I've just thought, I hope he's not actually bringing a shovel.
That'd be cool. So Harry's running a double battalion with a couple of weird boys, and then 6 units of 30 grots, 3 pain boys with more grots, another weird boy with another big mech and a grot, and then 4 more units of 30 grots and 2 more units of 10 grots, and then 3 runt herds.
There's a couple of grots in there.
I think I worked it out to be about 320 models. Now, I've spoken to the team captain, and I'll try and sort of head off at the pass. What someone's inevitably going to say is, oh my god, that's a lot of models. How are we going to
Move those
basically
around
have that in a
quickly.
2-hour game?
Yeah.
The boys have been practicing with it. I've suggested movement trays for it to try and help deploy it faster. And I've seen them. The paint standard on it is remarkable. Like it's
I haven't seen them.
no, I saw a preview photo. They weren't all finished at the time, but given the volume of models and the standard they've been painted to, it's pretty amazing. Like it's going to be an impressive army. And to put this into perspective for anyone listening, each of them's obviously on a 25mm base.
Mm-hmm.
If you rack them up base to base, with literally nothing in between them, and you've got a deployment
Because
zone.
that's what base to base means.
Thanks. And you have a 12-inch deployment zone on, like Dawn of War, the standard 40k mission.
Mhm.
So you've got 1 foot on and 6 feet across.
Mm-hmm.
He literally fills that halfway with just grots, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize there's a 2-inch coherency between them potentially available, which means that
the entire
he will
table.
fill his deployment zone like comfortably. He'll actually be having to squish them in a little bit to not be max coherency. It's going to be an interesting army to see on the table. And I think people are going to be massively underestimating what it actually does and how it wins games. So, like I said earlier, though, I'm not going to spoil that for anyone because I think that that's kind of half the fun of these events. But it's certainly an army that is going to be sort of looked at in a different light, assuming it's played correctly and well. It's a really exciting army to see.
With that, and my brain sometimes just goes ping on a totally different note, but sort of. When I can't remember what the last event when this actually happened, but okay, I'm going to be technical here. Jake was playing a game, and something happened on the table between 2 different armies.
Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm with you there so far.
Anyway, so he thought it looked pretty cool. And so he was like, hey, you should come and get a photo of this. So if you have any particular time during the event where you've got something on your table that goes, you know what, this looks really awesome, just flag me down because I'm going to have my camera there so I can come over and just get photos of things like that when there are awesome things happening on the table to be able to
Well, the
get
first
photos of. And I'll try and remember what's actually happening. So if I tell an anecdote like this again, I've got more than two guys were
things
playing
happening.
with some armies and their men were
Well,
doing something.
Well, while we're on the topic, though, you have been learning the rules lately.
Yes.
So hopefully we're going to get more technical as we go along, and Emma's actually going to be
I
well
think
more
that's
technically
quite
versed.
technical enough. I remember Jake's name.
Yeah, that works. Hi, Josh. Hi, Richard, Will, Anthony. Welcome along, guys. Yeah, so the Grot Army is certainly one that I think is going to have people looking at it sideways, and assuming the boys take up the suggestions in terms of speed of play, there's no reason why you can't get 3 or 4 turns out of that army and have an enjoyable game. So bear with the boys because it is a big army. Hopefully they take up some of the suggestions around movement trays, and that'll obviously speed everything up. But they have been practicing, so hopefully that will alleviate any concerns for that particular army for the weekend.
Yeah.
We're going to move on now. We're just going to, in no particular order.
Well, these are the order that they happen to be on the list.
In the spreadsheet, yeah.
Yeah. So next one is Andrew Horton with his Astra Militarum army, built under the Imperium keyword, primarily Scions, supported by 2 assassins, Celestine with bodyguard, and only 4 vehicles.
Yeah, so anyone who's seen Andrew's army, this is actually an army he brought to First Blood.
Yeah.
Kind of expanded on, I
Yeah.
suppose. And I know that he's been really interested in running Sisters of Battle, which it doesn't surprise me. There's a Diagolis in there as well with Celestine and her Gemini. It's a Tempestal Prime, a Tempest Command Squad, what is it, 3 Ogrins, and then an Ogren Bodyguard and 10 more Scions, and then, was it 3 or 4? No, it's 3 Taurox Primes and a Valkyrie. And then, 2 Eversor Assassins and 3 Demo Charge Vostrians, and that's kind of it. And it feels kind of, as an army, I'm trying to picture it in my head. I always work better with these when I actually get to put the models out on the table. But I think that's another one that's going to be surprising to people. Celestine, if you've ever played Celestine, she does a lot of work in combat. She resurrects herself.
Or she fails miserably, depending on...
Yeah. Well, you can see her in action in the first 2 games I play with my Sisters of Battle on our YouTube channel. One against Gillian Platel and the other against Sly Dave. Mm. And I have mixed results with her for that weekend, but that's kind of my dice with those sorts of characters. So it's an interesting army because it's a really low model count army, I suppose, more than anything else. You've only got...
It's not as low as one of the ones that we're going to be discussing.
No, but you've only got sort of 30-ish models you're going to be actually deploying, and depending on how those Tauroxes are set up, you could very easily see this army deploying in 4 drops. Depending on what he's choosing to deep strike, what he's choosing to infiltrate, what he's embarking in, what vehicles. It's going to be a really interesting army to play, and I think Andrew's been clever with it because it gives him a lot of flexibility pre-game to kind of mess with his opponent, where he can start with putting a Taurox Prime in it and then saying, okay, cool, I'm going to put the Command Squad, the Prime, the Diagolas, and both Assassins. I'm from memory. Oh, maybe the Assassins can't embark on it. I'll have to go and look at those exact rulings. But it does give him a lot of flexibility at the start of the game because he could deep strike the Scions, he could leave them in the vehicles. There's a whole bunch of opportunities there. The Bodyguard is also an interesting model. I think that'll catch a lot of people out, but I'm not going to spoil the surprise for how that one works because he's going to be a pain. So, I think Andrew's done a really good job of creating a list that's going to mess with people's perceptions of what it actually does, and it's probably going to surprise some people. So, hats off to Andrew. It's a really cool-looking army, and it's if it's to the same standard the rest of his armies have been for painting, it should be pretty epic on the table as well. So, hopefully we'll make sure we get a photo of that as well.
Could you, put that screen over to the other side when you put it up?
Oh, because so you can see the comments?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to scroll back up the comments very quickly. Welcome along, Joe, Pete, Jason, Marcus, Kieran, Arthur, Mitch, JVB, Doug, Jared. Hey, guys, welcome along.
George, are you playing? Are you coming to the event? If you happen to be watching, could you just, You're
talking about Arthur Thompson.
That's George, yeah.
Oh, okay. Who knows? I didn't see the name. But
okay,
moving on. So, Andrew's army is a really interesting one. Let's move on to the next one. This is one that is favourite of mine just because it's what it is.
Which is Justin Lane with pure Harlequins.
Yeah, I like the kahoonies it takes to bring this sort of army to a tournament. Because it's monofaction, it's index monofaction, and on top of all of that, it's Harlequins. But
you do have to give him credit for only taking up one faction.
It does.
He left a lot open for it.
It does, yeah. Again, it's another army I've seen photos of in the past at Outpost 6030, I believe, was the last time I saw photos of it, and it's a cool-looking Harlequin army, which makes it even nicer to see. It's white and orange from memory.
Selby, how much have you missed? Not a lot.
Well, we're talking lists at the moment, dude.
Yeah. White and orange. Sorry, I wasn't listening.
So it's a cool sort of striking color scheme. He's got vehicles, he's got bikes, he's got a Solitaire, a Death Jester, which are 2 models that in a competitive Harlequin army you wouldn't normally see either because they're both a bit average.
Mm-hmm.
He's got Star Bowlers in the jet bike units, which is, again, an option you don't normally see. What you do see, though, is the word fusion pistol. And it's repeated quite a lot.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, somewhere like 11 or 12 times at a rough count. So this army is going to be another one that shocks a few players, I think, at how fast it's going to be delivering very close range death. And only a small fraction of it is actually in close combat because there's only... half a dozen Harlequins embrace weapon loads there. The rest of them are using basic blades. So it's the very definition of a CQC army. It's close quarters combat, not actual close combat. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for him. It's an army that I've always loved. It's my first 40k army. and I have several small versions of them because every time I start painting them, I want to like gouge my eyes out because it's so hard. Of course, I'm starting another one.
Yeah, well, so this is a bit silly because your eyes are getting older.
No, I have perfect 20/20 vision according to the optometrist.
And
Thank you very much.
Your hands are starting to shake.
My hand-eye coordination might not be as strong as it once was.
So perhaps these Harlequins might need to be in their tracksuits, warm-up gear.
Yay, thanks. Josh, Kyle, Miles, hey guys. Yeah, so it's really cool to see a pure Harlequin army. I'm going to be really interested to see how he goes over the weekend. And obviously one of the advantages of the event is we're going to see the matchups post-event, even though we didn't get to play them. So we'll get to see your results. And it'll be interesting to see how he goes against the armies that he plays. So, yeah, very pleased. There was also another player who should get a quick mention. Sly Dave is bringing Harlequins as well, but they're part of an Inari detachment, so they don't really count. Sorry, Dave. So we'll go to the next one, which was another one that anyone who went to Masters 2017.
That was last year.
Yep, that's last year.
Yep.
We'll probably recognise.
Yeah, so this is Tyson Linthorne, and he's got a pure guard army. He only has one infantry model in the army. Everything else is tanks.
Yeah.
And you were expecting this to be illegal in the new version.
Yeah, the new FAQ, obviously, and we'll get to that at the end of the army list,
Yeah.
but the rule of 3 would essentially limit you to 3 data sheets. And I knew that Tyson was running 5 Hellhounds and 5 Basilisks, because why not?
In for a penny, in for a pound.
So when I saw that, when I remembered that, sorry, I should say, I thought, oh, well, that army's illegal straight away. And at Masters, I think Tyson ran 8 or even 9 Hellhounds. And in my head, I just went, well, there goes a bunch of money down the drain. And then I remembered Guard get tank squadrons. And the army literally is completely legal in what will now be called 8.5 because the FAQ's done such a massive change to the game. But so, yeah, it was really cool to see. It's a company commander on foot who literally has no vehicle. He has nothing to hide in. He's a dude. He
sounds quite brave.
He is.
Or stupid.
And
we'll go with brave.
What's interesting is, yeah, he is literally a dude with a bolt pistol and a power weapon, and I'm assuming the reason he's got a power sword and a bolt pistol is because he had 5 points left over and just decided what the hell.
Why not?
He might even be modelled that way. Who knows? Yes, Diffie, yes, they can be in squadrons. It's totally bonkers. You can run 9 Basilisks, 9 Hellhounds, and 9 Leman Russes under the rule of 3 under the new FAQ. It's amazingly powerful for Guard. But yeah, other than that...
so Matt Crosby's saying he actually ran 9 Hellhounds, which was quite scary.
Yeah, and Josh, if you want to share this live stream, by all means, go for it, man.
Yes.
Happy for you to share it around.
Share the love.
Yeah, so the army is a tank commander in a Punisher tank plus a second heavy support Russ with a Punisher cannon, 3 Earthshaker Basilisks, 5 Hellhounds with Inferno cannons, and a dude with a bolt pistol. So again, low model.
Don't discount the dude with the bolt pistol.
Hey, look, I'm sure for Tyson he won games. So look, I think it's an interesting army that, again, a lot of people aren't going to necessarily be equipped to face in a matchup process-driven environment, and it's going to run rings around some armies. It does have some fairly significant risks. It's one that I think my tower actually will do really well against, but the team who he's part of already know that I want that matchup. So I'm
probably not going to get that one.
But it's a really cool army. It's a really lovely paint job as well. Tyson did an amazing job of it for Masters. I don't know if every tank that he's using was in that army though, so maybe it's a couple of new models. I don't know. But it's really cool to see something really diverse rather than just a wall of dudes from the Astra Militarum. So it's really cool.
Okay, the next player, I am going to apologize in advance because I will get your name wrong. So this is Dom Malavisi. Dom?
Malavisi.
We're going to go with Dom.
Yep.
And he's running Necrons.
Yeah.
And this is, one of the biggest armies that we've seen. It comes close to the model, the army that Hugh took down to Albany, which was...
Yeah, Hugh took a 2,000-point army that was a single model.
And Dom is bringing 3 models.
Yeah, and they're all the same model, so it's going to be really easy to keep track of. So Dom is running... he's nicknamed himself the Lord Militant Statistically Average, and I think that suits this army because it is just 3 things that are the same. So
he's running the Tesseract Bolts.
Yes, 3 Tesseract Bolts, all bog-standard loadouts. One of them's a Warlord, but it doesn't do anything. It's pretty cool. Like, I'm not going to lie. I was talking to Josh, who is in the chat right now. Woohoo 3 volts is the comment, and he and I were talking about this a few days ago. He wants to make predictions on who's going to win, by the way. So I'm expecting that at least in the chat, Josh. And yes, they are Mefret for -1 AP up close. Yeah, these we actually wrote a better version of this list at 1,500 points, and I'm really glad that that no one spotted it. It basically takes one of the vaults out and uses those points in a Supreme Command attachment to put a.
Can we just change that? You wrote a different version rather than better.
Oh, I think it's better.
It was different.
Josh, get behind me here. Like, yeah. Anyway, the point of it is it gets the Deceiver in there as a Satan instead of the third Tesla, and then you just take the 3 cheap HQs to do it because it's the easiest way to get 1 elite slot for the Deceiver. And then you can pick them up and deep strike them into your opponent's army. Although I have to check whether that works in the new FAQ because they've started neutering that. So.
So
it works for this event.
And illegal.
It works for this event, but I'm not sure it works in future events. You see, Josh says it's better. He agrees with me.
Yeah, he's not in the room.
He is. He's right there.
Okay, are we on to the
better?
Next?
Sorry, MC.
Are we on to the next?
Yeah, we'll go to the next one because there's not too much you can say about 60 Tesla shots and 9 Satan powers a turn. It's going to. And not to mention the 3 models are toughness 7, 28 wounds apiece.
Apparently it is still legal.
Yeah, 3 plus 4 plus saving throws and regenerating 1 wound a turn. These things are beasts. I suspect that it's going to be very lopsided point scores with this particular army. If it gets the right matchups, it's just going to be 20 zeros.
They're only beasts if you can keep them on the table.
Yeah. So yeah, average of 30 mortal wounds. I worked it out to be slightly less than that, Josh, but yeah, it's pretty bonkers. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they go.
Okay, and the last army that we're going to look at is Matt Fink's army, which is a Chaos army, and he's got 38 Khorne Berserkers and 15 Mutilators.
And there's a Sorcerer there I've just noticed as well.
And a Sorcerer.
It's another one of these armies I looked at and went, this takes a bit of guts to put on the table. So it's an Exalted Champion, Mark of Khorne, Power Axe, Talisman of Burning Blood. Like he's a choppy man. He literally has no guns. You've then got 5 units of 3 Mutilators with no Chaos marks, which I'm a bit conflicted by. I feel like if he'd marked them, they might have been better. But I also understand he couldn't mark them because there's no points to mark them because of the rest of the army. So they're an interesting unit.
Choices.
Mainly because no one uses Mutilators. They're a fine cast model.
Matt uses Mutilators.
Who?
Matt, the guy who's running the Mutilators.
Well,
I'm sorry, Matt.
What I'm getting to, though, is that the models are fine cast, and that's the reason most people don't use them because they're terrible in terms of the way they cast and come out, and they're not the greatest looking models to begin with. My understanding is that Matt is running the Red Butcher Combat Terminators from the Heresy range with axes and stabby things. So they look pretty cool. I think they're certainly in theme because they've got marks of Khorne all over them. It matches the whole Khorne theme that the army's going for.
Interesting. You can pay a CP to mark them mid-game.
Oh, there you go. See, I'm not a Chaos player, and Josh is the Chaos guy I ask questions of. So thanks for that, dude.
There you go, Matt, just in case you didn't know that.
He probably does know that, and it's probably one of the little sneaky things that he throws in the army.
Well, it's not sneaky anymore for the how many people who are watching this.
No. And then he's also got a Sorcerer. This is the only gun in the army. It's a single bolt pistol, which is pretty amazing. Because he's Psychic. Oh, he's obviously got Smite on the Psyker as well, but that doesn't really count. And then he has, from the looks of it, it's 19 Khorne Berserkers and then 2 units of 9 Khorne Berserkers. And that's it. And they don't even have a bolt pistol between them. They're all chain swords, chain axes, and power fists. From what I can gather, this army kind of just runs at you and hopes there's enough models left when it gets there to
Which
carry
is why
the day.
Kyle's saying he's just standing on the second level and shooting.
Well, he hopes that, except Kyle, that's in magenta, mate, in the FAQ. That doesn't work for this event. You're boned.
Shame. I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. So we'll get to that in a second, though, in terms of the FAQs. So yeah, I think it's a really cool army. It's an army that is nothing but choppy, stabby things, and it's literally going to come down to how those Mutilators get deployed, because they can deep strike or teleport or whatever they use for that word these days for that particular unit, because they like to change it every time. And yeah, if it catches you and stabs you, you probably die, and if it doesn't, then you probably win. either way, it's a very straightforward army to play in that regard.
Hmm.
And there's no shooting phase, so it should be relatively quick turns.
Yeah. Oh, that's what Stu's saying as well.
Yeah. So there's a couple of comments there as well from Jared, from JD. Annoyed the lists day after due. His codex dropped. Yes, the Drukhari codex did drop the day after lists were due. Sorry, dude. You'll have to wait till June.
Technically, though, that was a week after list submissions because the codex had to be out a week prior, so that you had time to actually,
Yeah, which is why obviously the Necrons got in, but the Dark Eldar did not.
Yeah.
But
you know what? You can take it, JD. You're tough.
Josh,
you'll be all right.
Josh is currently giving the some of the tips and tricks for the mutilator list right there in the chat. So I'm not going to spoil those, but if you want to go looking for it through the chat, you can.
Yeah, your tank can totally climb terrain.
Timo says, a Psyker in a Khorne army, are they eating him alive first turn? It's actually a Renegade chapter. He's not using any of the Legion-specific rules from the Chaos Codex. So they're a Renegade chapter as opposed to an actual Chaos Legion, which is kind of his theme for it. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting in that regard. And he's obviously listed 2 psychic powers there as well, Prescience and Warp Time, which he didn't have to do. And I think he's also listed the Talisman of Burning Blood. I believe that's a relic. I might be wrong there. But yeah, so it's another interesting list that I think you can afford to put on the team. A lot of these are lists you can afford to put in a team environment that you wouldn't necessarily see in a singles environment, because they do hit these kind of niche situations. Josh dropping truth bombs again about the mutilators. So yeah, it's really been really cool to see some of these armies come out, and it's one of the best things about team events is that you can bring out some of the quirky, unusual type builds that you wouldn't necessarily do well with in singles, but when you can kind of protect them and control the matchups for them, they can do really well. We're seeing Vespids turning up in Tau armies. Like, I've got a unit of 6 I've been painting. There's a dude running 3 or 4 units of them, which is really cool. I hope they're the real models. Mine are. There's a lot of guys who prefer the conversions as opposed to the flying insects. Mine are bright yellow with bee stripes on them.
He's so excited about his bumblebees.
They're the Wu-Tang Vespid.
If you get a chance, just tell him how amazing his bees look, okay? It will make my life a lot better.
The Wu-Tang. Anyone gets that reference? I hope so. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're not old enough and not into hip hop.
No, I'm not old enough.
You are old enough.
No, I'm not.
So they're kind of the 5 or 6 armies that I found most interesting. There are plenty of really good armies in the list in general. I don't think there's any one list that looks just what were you thinking. I think they all have a niche within the team environment, and I think it's going to be interesting for players to kind of experience that. There's a lot of players who are new
to
the team environment.
Yeah.
Shut your mouth, Anthony. They're not the worst models in Warhammer. Go away.
Oh yeah, look, your bees.
I knew Peter'd support my decision.
Yeah. Especially since he hasn't seen him.
Yeah, and there's one from Stu.
Yeah.
So I think what's going to be most interesting for players, I've been talking to a captain about the event a couple of days ago, and his team had a list that was built to essentially deal with psychic heavy armies. And it wasn't until we started chatting about it that he went, oh, I'm probably never going to get that matchup. Because if you're careful with how you process that matchup component of the game, you can essentially protect your psychic armies from that.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched the video how to do the matchups or how the matchup processes works, please go and have a look at it. It's on YouTube.
It's listed as the 2017 matchup process.
It's the same process.
I should probably just change the name on that
Just
on that
the
video.
WOTC matchup process, but for the time being we won't.
I probably can get on and try and muck about with it tonight, but we'll see. Yeah, I think that matchup process in particular is going to be a real eye-opener for players, particularly the ones who are really keen to get involved in this part of the hobby but don't have any first-hand experience. We've also got a couple of players coming along who have been part of that process but haven't been captains before. The captain for my team, Ghislaine Platel, she's obviously been exposed to the ATC for a couple of years now through Pete and the hobby community around her, but she's never been captain. and she gets to be captain this year, which is cool.
It's very exciting. Anthony's just saying, I'm assuming it's around the matchup process. Please to God, make cards.
Yeah.
They will help significantly. So,
and our video has like a very basic version of it on how to do it.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be.
No.
Yeah. There's no prizes for amazing matchup cards.
No.
You know?
It's literally a case of our team are talking about having a model from each team so that we can literally just put a model down and go, this is the option.
A piece of paper works just as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the goal is to make it easy and identifiable and, hopefully just speed that whole process up. Yes, Kyle, you are a noob.
That's completely fine.
Anthony's laminated and coloured, and yes, Josh, it's something I'll talk about with you in regards to ATC. And
I'm sorry, Anthony, you don't get any prizes, but you will get my adulation. How's that?
Thank you very much, Rich. He's just posted under Objective Secured the matchup process on YouTube. Thank you very much,
you're
dude.
Awesome. Thank you.
JD, I'm sure that your cards are top tier. I know the guys you were running with. Look, it's going to be a really interesting day. We've got a bunch of trestle tables currently living in our living room. We've got terrain everywhere around us. It's kind of all steaming ahead now. So it's going to be an early start on Sunday, and it's going to be a late finish. And let's try and enjoy the day while we're there as well, because I think it's going to be a madhouse.
FAQ?
Yeah, this is a big one. You know that we've been struggling with this for a number of weeks now, because when we planned the event, it was planned with the understanding that this would be out in March, and then you'd have a week's grace to learn it, and then the lists would be due, and then it would all kind of flow through. And I think they delivered them on the 48th of March.
Yeah.
Or the 17th of April, or 16th of April, depending on how you count it. It's caused a little bit of consternation and frustration, particularly since the day it dropped, we were actually having our daughter's 13th birthday, which meant that we couldn't address these concerns as promptly as some of the players might have liked. But they're here now, they're not being used. To make it perfectly clear, if you're watching this, anything that's in magenta in any of the FAQs is not being used. If it's in black, it's from the old FAQ, so it's going to be used. If the question is in black and it's the answer is in magenta, and it's a yes/no question, then obviously the reverse answer would be true, because if they're answering it as yes in magenta, then obviously the answer previous to this was no. So it's going to require a little bit of common sense from players and from the captains. If you have copies of the old FAQ pre this one, because obviously you can't download the old ones anymore, please bring them along. But I think everyone needs to just kind of remember that we're working with an incomplete tool set now, so just be patient, understanding, talk through it with your opponent, and wherever possible, try and resolve it amicably between you and your opponent. If you have to drag captains in, that's fair enough. But at that point, you're impacting 3 of 6 games, realistically. And then you're potentially impacting another game if you guys can't come to an agreement. We have to get a third captain in to resolve the question. So my suggestion would be, between players, try and resolve it amicably. Roll
quickly.
Roll the dice if you need to. If it's crucial, obviously, drag the captains in and do what you need to do. But hopefully everyone can be adult enough to kind of behave in a way that leads us to a point where we are actually finishing games. I'm going to quickly go through the comments before I get actually into the document.
Kyle will be sober. Is that only for the first game?
Well, Kyle's team is here for the beer, and I think we don't allow the beer access until middle of round 2. So, Kyle has to be sober for round 1. Hope the aircon works this time. Selby, so do we.
Selby, but we do recommend shorts and a t-shirt.
It's also going to, we're now at the end of April and it's cooling down, so hopefully it's not going to be too hot for the day, because it was a couple of days ago. We hit 30 again in April, which is just great. Hawaiian t-shirts and team dice bags. That's going to be interesting.
I'm hoping that they're shorts as well.
They're
not wearing the dice bags.
So if they're wearing
I have a really interesting mental picture.
Please don't say what you're thinking.
No.
Thanks very much, Rob. Yes, happy birthday. She turned 13. We're feeling suitably old and nostalgic.
One of us was very young when she was born. Okay.
Did you actually just say you expect Wyman players to exercise common sense? Yes, Pete, I understand the fruitlessness of that statement, but I'm going to cross my fingers and hope.
JD's captain's an idiot. Nice.
Well, I mean, he's going to really have some entertaining matchups on Sunday if Alex reads that. Yes, Pete, we have been into GW together, and
Okay, keep
yeah,
going.
moving on.
We're not gonna. Yeah.
No, you cannot bring Hit Flask. Don't suggest that,
No, you
Joe.
can't.
Like, in all seriousness, guys.
$50,000 fine for
you
you guys.
and for us.
$250,000 fine for us. Yeah,
Don't-
we're
don't.
not putting our house on the market for the sake of you guys having a Hip Flask. Wait till 10:30 or 11 o'clock.
And then, like, yeah, you can't bring external alcohol in. Like, in all seriousness, guys, please don't do it.
I'm
Like,
sure you're joking, but still.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be raining all day Sunday.
Perfect.
Not
Well,
necessarily.
No, that's really
if it
bad
could
for
kind
setup
of
and pack
hold
up.
off until
But between the hours of
9 and-
9 and 5, it's probably
yeah,
okay
that's
to rain. Exactly. Pete has it spot on. Hip Flask would void the alcohol license, meaning no booze ever, as well as the fines. So please be sensible.
Yeah.
You can bring brownies, Kyle.
No. No, we can't.
Oh, you mean those brownies?
No, we can't. Okay, so I think we've covered that.
Okay, we'll move on to the FAQ.
FAQ.
So, we're not going to cover all of the different documents because they did update pretty much every FAQ on the website. And if you're not aware of that, please go and check it out because for future events, obviously after this Sunday, we will be using all of the FAQs.
Mm-hmm.
There are many, many, many changes across all of the codexes, so it's really important you go and check them out. The main document we're going to talk about, though, is the big FAQ, because Games Workshop like to be inventive with their name calling. It's called the Big FAQ 1 2018. This has probably been quite divisive for everyone. So we're going to use the page 1 of this document, which were beta rules prior to this document being published.
Mm-hmm.
They'd already been voted on by captains, so both of them are in. So it's the Psychic Focus rule and the Targeting Characters rules. So if you haven't seen them already, please go and download the big FAQ, and it's page 1 with the final match play rules on it. So it's pretty straightforward. It's a slight hit to multiple smites, and it's some sensible changes to the character rules in terms of targeting independent characters. So yeah, it's worth definitely if you're a psychic heavy army going and grabbing the page, and if you're relying on some character shenanigans, it's worth having as well.
I think it's worth reading regardless, so that if your opponent has those, you know what's going on as well.
Oh, absolutely. But I think if you're going to be playing it, if you're actively participating in these two sections of the game, it's important that you have a copy for your opponent.
Yeah, I think that it's important that everyone reads it because the chances are everyone will be actively participating in this when their opponent uses these.
I'll cite Kyle in here for the beer.
Okay, why?
Because, well, he's just asked what's a codex.
Okay.
So we'll move on. That's probably the page that's most important for the immediate future in terms of this Sunday. So,
and we're not thinking anything past this Sunday because
yeah, the Smite Psychic Focus change is an important one. Just very quickly, the beta test had you -1 to the dice.
Now it's +1.
Now it's +1 to the casting target number. So in a game situation, if you are up to your 5th cast of Smite, so you're obviously in the old rules, you're -4 to the dice roll, needing 5 or higher. If you do roll a 9 minus the 4, it becomes a 5. Your opponent only needs a 6 to deny the witch. Under the new version, you would still need to roll that 9, but your opponent now needs to roll a 10 to deny because you're not minusing from the dice roll. So it is an important change. And it actually means that when you do get those smites off later in the psychic phase, as you cast more and more of them, it actually gets harder and harder to stop as well. So there is while there is a negative for trying to cast multiple smites, when it does work, it's going to be very, very hard for your opponent to stop it, which I think is a good balance for that rule. The other rule for targeting characters is a cleanup of characters with 10 wounds or less, and you can't use characters to screen other characters. And there were a few different ways of doing that, but I won't go into that because it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll very quickly touch on the new beta rules. Where are they? Here we go. So
I'll tell you what, you very quickly touch on those because I need a drink of water.
Okay. Yeah, Anthony finds it very hard to stop smites. That's because you're Tau. Thanks very much, Richard, for posting the FAQs as well. All the links are there. Like I say, grab the ones. Anything in magenta we're not using. So, beta match play rules, tactical reserves. This is probably the one that's caused the most contention in terms of how you deploy armies and how they interact. So you can now only have half your power of your army off the table, which obviously hurts when you're running Michaeloid Spores and Rippers on the table and then deep striking Flying Hive Tyrants Allen. Combine that with the rule of 3, which we'll talk about in a minute, and that army kind of gets really complex to use. You also can only deploy in your own deployment zone on turn 1 when you do use those abilities, which has caused a lot of consternation. I think it's generally a good change for the game, and we're going to run an event in June to try out some of these new changes. So it'll be really cool to, have them on the table and see them firsthand.
Anthony Florence causes me to have a new thing, which is called Tournament Organisers Tourette's. And every time I hear or see that word, swear words fly from my mouth.
Yeah, there've been a few moments of
no
of that.
Control at all.
So if you too suffer from TOT, and I'm sure that there's a few of you in the chat, I'm looking at you, Josh, who have run tournaments, you're allowed to have TOT.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we can get that listed and medically diagnosed.
DSM-4, here we come.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to that from that. It's an interesting rule, and I think there's been a lot of negativity thrown around about it because there are some armies that relied on that first turn drop and charge. I think it's going to mean that people have to revise the way they engage with those armies. They're not as simple as point and click as they used to be, so you're going to have to be more cagey, and Deep Strike becomes more tactical. I'll also point out, and it's something I only realized today, that in the 28 years that I've been playing the game, from Rogue Trader to now, there's only been the last 12 months where you've been able to deep strike and charge turn 1. Prior to that, every other version of the game, you could only deep strike turn 2, and you could never charge from it without a very specific exception. So I suppose the longer you've been playing, the less that it's going to, it feels like you're just going back to what you used to do 12 months ago.
But the difficult thing is, I guess, that
everyone's gotten used to doing it.
Yeah, well, not only that, but some people are new with 8th edition.
That is true as well. So no, the tactical reserves rules won't be applied. Basically, pages 2 through 6 of this document, Rob, aren't being used because it creates too many complications with army lists, particularly, and then obviously it fundamentally changes the game. And at that point, we might as well have just said, okay, everyone gets a resubmit. You've got 48 hours, no painting requirements, and let's do this. But I don't think that's in the best interest of the game on the event for the weekend. Battle Brothers is the next rule, which talks about how you build armies. Essentially, this is taking away the ability to put what is called soup armies together inside a detachment. So anyone who's not familiar with that, it just means that where you could have Chaos Space Marines and Chaos Demons in the one detachment, now you need to have them in separate detachments. Same with Eldar, Dark Eldar, Harlequins. You can still have them as an army using 3 detachments, but you have to have them in separate detachments.
So soup armies still happen, they're just limited.
They're by detachment. So like Andrew Horton's army that we're just talking about is actually illegal because of that rule. Because
however, we're not applying it, therefore it's completely fine.
Yep. But for future, straight after the weekend, it actually becomes an illegal army because he has a soup detachment. So I think it's a really positive change. There's been a lot of confusion over it, in particular around the Inari. The Inari, you have to read page 3 of the document as well as page 2 to understand how the Inari work.
Oh, that's unusual for Games Workshop, that you have to read past where you're going in order to understand what was before it.
No. You can. It's very clear before it, but then it gives you an exception the page after.
Okay.
But I know a lot of Eldar players aren't reading page 3. They're reading page 2 and then going to Facebook and losing their minds. So read the whole thing first. Then we get the interim balance review, which I think is Games Workshop's way of saying, well, we think we're going to change these things, and as long as no one complains, we're just going to roll them out permanently. So we've got battalions and brigades going up in command points to 5 and 12, respectively, from 3 and 9, which is a fairly significant change. And I think that's just more a case of them trying to encourage running more balanced brigades and battalion detachments as opposed to people running multiple vanguards to get a particular spammed unit. Which is also fixed in a moment with one of the other rules. They've also tidied up some of the FAQ, special rules and stratagems, and kind of tidied up some of the more unbalanced things that we've seen at some of the major tournaments, particularly things like Tide of Traders, Word of the Phoenix, and stacking Feel No Pain rules. So all of those things will be coming into effect, obviously, at our future events. the next part is the organised play, which is another contention that has caused some consternation. It essentially, they've added a column to the matched play recommendations where there's a limit on how many times you can take each data sheet. So at a 1,000 to 2,000 point tournament, which is kind of where we normally sit, it's 6x4 tables, it's 2 to 3 hours, it's 3 detachments, and then it's up to 3 of a single data sheet per army.
I can't see that. Hang on.
Can you read that now? This bit here.
Yeah, I was just. It looked like 3,000 points where I was looking, but
okay.
It's okay. I'm good to...
I'm really positive about this change.
Mm.
I think it's fantastic for the game going forward. I know there's a few people who are upset about it, primarily because they might. I'll use Alan. Hopefully he doesn't mind me using it. He has 7 flying hive tyrants. I know he has them. He's got the models. He's only going to be allowed.
I don't think he's hiding them.
No,
like you say, I know he has them. He's got them locked in a cupboard, and he's going to sneak them out when I'm not looking.
Right. I think it's one that no, Josh. I'll touch on the Tau Commander thing in a second as well. It means that you're going to see more balanced armies. Essentially, you're going to see a greater variety.
Are you suggesting that Alan's 7 flying hive tyrants is unbalanced?
Absolutely, it gives me TOT. It's hopefully going to see people taking a better variety of units and a more balanced style of army. I really think that it's a positive change on the game. As a collector, for me, it does hurt some of my past purchases. Like I've got 4 teams of stealth suits sat here that are all painted. I can now only use 3 of them under these match play rules. Now, obviously, I won't stop them coming out with mates or anything like that. But as a tournament goer, I'm now expecting that I'm not going to be able to field more than 3 of them at a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 60 striking scorpions here. I can now only field 3 units of them because they're units of 5 to 10.
Awesome, because I know just how much of a giant pain it was to get to that many of those and having to try and source them all, and they're the ones that are from all those different eras as well, and now they're
half of them are unusable at tournaments.
Beautiful. You just have to go to tournaments that are up to, is that
no, even
3,000 points,
even that doesn't cover it. The trick
6,000.
Well, because we play that Apocalypse thing every year, that'll at least come out once a year, which is great. But in terms of balancing match play, I think it's a really positive change. The trick with the Tau Commander's limit, which was limited to 1 per detachment, which essentially makes it 3 per army in this case, is that the Tau Commanders have to be from different detachments. You can't have 3 in a single detachment, whereas you could have 3 flying hive tyrants in a single detachment. You just can't have more than 3 of them. So the way Tau access their commanders is probably more limiting because you can't access them in 1 detachment. But you're not, in terms of numerics, you're not limited any worse than anyone else. So I think by and large, though, this is a great rule. It does impact some armies a little bit more than others.
And the people who it impacts negatively maybe not quite as excited as you are by it?
I think if you're interested in the growth and sustainability of the tournament scene at large, while it might hurt to not be able to take more than 3 of a particular kind of unit, and I should mention as well that transports and troop choices are exempt from that rule.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got 6 units of 20 Guardians or 6 units of 12 Fire Warriors, you can still run all of 6 of those. And if you've got a bunch of Wave Serpents or Devilfish, they're fine as well. But what it does do is it means that you can't, if you want to run 30 Dark Reapers, you can't run 10 units of 3 anymore. You have to run 3 units of 10. The net result of that is a bunch less detachments because you've only got 3 heavy supports at that point. You can't stretch them out over 3 spearheads for more command points. And you only get 3 Dark Reaper Tempest launches instead of the 10 you were previously getting. So, it does really help address some of the balance issues. Guard, obviously, with squadrons, and a few other armies have squadrons as well, probably not as impacted because they can just run squadrons, like we mentioned with Tyson's Hellhounds. And there's a few weird ones that kind of sneak in as like the Guard Heavy Weapons team's a great example. They come in units of 3, but now you can only have 3 units of 3. But they're just dudes with mortars and basic sort of weapons. So you kind of go, oh, do you really need to limit them necessarily?
Mm.
But I would rather have a blanket rule.
I was just about to say that it's very difficult to have one rule for one and another for somebody else. So,
yeah. And Josh says exactly what I'm trying to say. Is it's 100% best for the scene. People know it, even if their list just got hit by a baseball bat. Yeah. Hopefully, anyone who thinks about the long term and who they might have played at a tournament and some of the more high end spammy lists, this is a good thing.
Anthony just had a comment there that I didn't quite get to. Considering they've done this, the commander rule has now just added an unnecessarily restriction layer for Tau.
I understand the way the restriction was implied, and it certainly feels like that restriction could be removed now, and it may come in a future FAQ. But
like big FAQ number 2.
Yeah, probably. But in the short term, it does add another layer of complication that's probably unnecessary. It does mean, however, that if you want your 3 commanders, you have to have 3 detachments, which isn't necessarily a bad thing given the boost they've just given to battalions and so on. Alan does hide... just highlight, I should say, one of the problems, which is...
highlights, not hides them.
Yeah.
See, he's very open about these things.
When you have different data sheets with different names, so I believe that there's the Screamer Killer Carnifex. Help me out here, Alan. There's 2 others in the Codex, and then you've also got the Stone Crusher Carnifex from Forge World. There's a few of them that have different names that are essentially the same unit with a different weapon payload. You can run 3 of each data sheet, and then each data sheet allows you to take, I think it's 3. So 36 Carnifexes of different weapon payloads is completely possible.
Different names, yeah.
So there are little holes in it like that, but I suppose it's no different than me running 3 units of Howling Banshees, 3 units of Fire Dragons, 3 units of Striking Scorpions, because they're all aspect warriors. They've just got different names and they have slightly different weapon payloads. Yeah. So I suppose it's the same thing. Scott says it'll impact players that impose self-restrictions on their armies. I don't know. I don't think so. If you
surely not. Surely it would be the opposite way around.
I don't see that, Scott. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah.
Because if I'm self-imposing limitations, like my Tau army is all stealth. So I've got 4 units of stealth suits. I've got 3 Ghost Keels. I've got a single commander Cold Star. I've got Commander Shadow Sun. I've got a unit of Vespid. And the only other stuff that I might consider adding is flyers. So I'm self-imposing fairly heavy limits on my selection from the Tau Codex. The only thing it impacts is 1 unit of stealth suits, which, given I have 6 other elite choices, I can still make a pair of Vanguards out of that. And if I'm going to add any more elites, there'll be things like Avaras and the Riptides, which are more elites. So I don't know. I don't see how that's... if you impose further restrictions on yourself, I don't understand how the rule of 3 makes that any worse.
I'd be interested, like you said, if Scott could expand on that, because I'm not necessarily understanding what he means by that either.
Yeah. Hawk says, considering Raptors and Obliterators were 0-1 back in the day, it's not so bad. Absolutely, mate. That's the right attitude. Will, you're right. Shadow Sun or Farsight. Who else cares about anything else? Yep, you're 100% there with me. Here we go. Here's the Screamer Killers. Thornbacks, Screamer Killers, Carnifexes, and Stone Crushers. Plus Old One Eye. Thanks, Josh. Obviously, Pete then points out the problem of points for that many Carnifexes. But, yeah.
So there's still restrictions there.
Tau have 3 data sheets for commanders. Without 1 per detachment, it gets silly. That's actually very true. I hadn't thought of that either, Miles. There's the basic Tau commander in a battle suit. Then you've got the XV86 Enforcer battle suit. Then you've got the Cold Star battle suit. And if you take away the limit of 1 commander per detachment, you could run 3 of each of those commanders, which actually does take us back to the commander spam of the index. So that is a very good point.
Yeah, thanks, Miles.
If you just want to run, say, Ghost Kills and Stealth Suits, then you're shit out of luck. Yes and no. I can run a 2,000-point army using 3 Ghost Kills, they're added drones, 3 units of Stealth Suits, and they're added drones. Shadow Sun and a Cold Star will, once you add their drones as well, you will get out past 1,500 points pretty easily. You might not hit 2,000. I think you'd probably be ditching Shadow Sun for different commanders and different weapon loads. And, you know, you can add fusion blasters. You can change the weapons on the Ghost Kills. You'd probably get 1,750 or 1,800. I think after that, yeah, okay, you want another stealth thing. You know, you're starting to look at Flyers and Forge World. But I think for the average army, I don't think it's that impactful.
I am yet to meet a tournament player who is upset at the idea of having to buy new models.
So Scott does expand a little bit here. He says, what I've come up with is players that theme armies Coven only, for example, Primaris only, simply because there are few choices per slot. Yeah, that doesn't... Okay, I'll use the Coven because I'm a Dark Hunter player and I can relate to that. You've got... The maximum you can take is 4 HQ choices. You've got 3 Homoculi, and Urian Rakarth, the named one. So in theory, you could run a Spearhead, a Battalion, and... I'm trying to think what elites... Oh, yeah, you can run elites. And you could do a Vanguard or a second Spearhead. You can run Rax as your troop choices. You can run Talos and Kronos as your heavy supports. You can run Mandrakes that are still in theme and part of the army. You can run Incubi. You can run Raiders. You can run Venoms. You can also run the Forge World Reaper, which I believe has the Coven rule. It does have Cult and it does have Cabal. I don't know if it has Coven off the top of my head. My point is that you run out of points way before you... hit any sort of limit inside the army building process, particularly since the Talos and Kronos are units of 1 to 3. So I don't see that as being an issue. And the same with the Primaris example. If you only want to run Primaris Marines, your intercessors aren't limited. You've then got 3 units of Hellblasters, 3 units of Interceptors, I think they're called, 3 units of Aggressors, 3 Repulsor tanks, plus all the characters. You're going to run out of points way before you ever hit any of those sorts of maxed out limits. And if you're trying to justify running more than 30 Hellblasters, I actually don't know you're running it for theme anymore. If you're running 60 Hellblasters with plasma rifles and trying to claim fluff, I don't know that I could live, like, I don't know I could swallow that, because they're just really good. And trying to spam them out past 3 units is now in that spam territory that doesn't match the fluff. So justifying it with fluff just doesn't make any sense to me. Here's a question from Anthony. Do attached drones use at one of your datasheet usages? No. There was a post today by one of our very own Perth locals that clarified the rules team.
Ryan went to the GW rules team, didn't he?
Well, he went to the community site on the Facebook group, and they came back with a response from the rules team that said no, they don't. Certainly locally, we'll probably roll that out as official because it makes sense. Hopefully they put it in an update of the FAQ. Yep. There's a lot of... repulsors are dedicated transports. Thanks, Josh. You're 100% right. So you could run more than 3 repulsors as well. Dark Angel would use that much plasma. No, they wouldn't. Using more than 30, even like Dark Angels have been labeled the Plasma Army. They're the ancient weapon army, not the Plasma Army. And given the Primaris are new Marines, not old ones, I think running 30, they're 33 points a model. So if you're running 30 of them, that's 1,000 points.
Pete's question is, and what if your theme is plasma?
And Tears of the Innocent, he should add. Yeah. Yes, you can run 20 Devilfish if you like, Ant, but I think they're more than 100 points a model, so you might be out of luck with that one, particularly since you'd need 20 other units to do it. We're going to move on, though, from that one, because that's a long conversation that can just go and go and go, and we'll try and include all that in the podcast. Interim points review is the next part. The Commissars come down in points again, which they desperately needed. Sly Marbo now has an official points cost, which is great, because he only had a power level up until now. The trees have got changed points. And did you know they FAQ'd it so that you can't make fortifications your warlord now? Thank God. It's dumb.
I'm a little bit sad about that.
It's dumb that we've had to put it in writing.
I'm a bit sad. I would quite like to have trees as the warlord.
Do you know,
I know that we said that we wouldn't allow it, but I would quite like it.
Do you know, off the back of off that particular ruling, now someone is trying to claim that nothing in the rules tells them they have to have their models with their bases flat on the table. So there's nothing stopping them when they charge turning the model upside down so that their base can get within 1 inch of something above them.
So what, they think that they've got an army of gymnasts?
Yeah.
Or
look, with Harlequins,
enthusiasts.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
But like... So
I think this goes back to Pete's
comment
earlier about common sense being completely uncommon sometimes in the gaming community.
So we've got Craftworld units going up, Dark Reapers going up to 12 points. That's a 7-point increase, completely reasonable.
Oh, Ryan, you just missed your shout out.
You did.
But we do all thank you.
Yes, thanks, Ryan, about the drones.
You shouldn't have told him what for.
Farseer going up 10 points, not a big deal. Spirits are going up 20 points. It just puts him in line with the rest of the mid-level psychers. Warlocks going up to 55 points is just pants on head silly. That is a model that kills itself half the time when it casts a psychic power, only has 2 wounds,
Don't even talk to us about changing
It's-
bases, Josh.
It's terrible. Like, I don't understand why the Warlocks went up the way they did. Moving on. Dark Angels, Dark Talons had a
So
points
I'm
change.
sensing that you're not happy with the.
I got 30 Warlocks out there in the dungeon. I'm not happy with them going up.
What
20,
were they? 20 points.
25. They were 25 points a model, and they're now 50. I think
55 now.
it's ridiculous. Anyway, 35 to 55. I think they went. So they're 20-point increase. So that's literally just like I'm never using them again, or at least not until the next FAQ round when they fix it. Gilliman
Right.
went up a few points. Flying Hive Tyrants now a minimum of 190 without weapons, so they're now going to be tipping the scales at 210 points, give or take. The really good ones will be tipping the scales more like 230, 240. So that's really good. You add to that the fact you can only have 3 of them. I think that works really well. Fire Raptor's gone up 90 points, which is
Significant.
really significant because the plane now goes from 360, give or take, to 450. And actually, it's good because it means that there's actual choices that you now have to make rather than just going the Fire Raptor is the best. So you're now balancing that, which is great. Deathcore, a few little point changes. The Chaos Fire Raptor follows it as well. I'm just going to have a quick look at the comments here. Try charging the base. Oh, no, that's exactly my point, Josh. Then my models have to go upside down to have their bases within one of yours because they're all doing handstands.
I thought that's changing the base.
No.
It's a long way away.
Joe makes a good point with the Warlocks. It's only 5 points to put them on a bike, which makes them infinitely better.
So it goes from 55 to 60.
Yeah, because the bike version was already 60 points. And you got +1 wound and +1 toughness and a better armor save and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh,
But
so
they
you
didn't
might have just made him smile again. Thanks, Joe.
But I don't have any bike Warlocks though, unless you want to let me go and buy them.
Okay, you've not made me smile, Joe.
204 says Alan, the minimum flying Hive Tyrant these days. Yes, it is special bass salt. It's my Warlock salt. Go away. Supremacy, yeah, that doesn't count. Supremacy suit should be that expensive. So yeah, look, the points changes I think are all pretty reasonable, apart from the Warlocks, which everyone knows my feelings on.
Yeah,
So-
you've hidden them so well.
So I think this is probably the bit that's caused the most consternation, and I think that
What, the points changes or the
just the fact that
first
there's
page?
these 6 pages cause some massive changes to the way the game plays, and when you combine them with the other FAQ documents, particularly the rulebook one and the chapter approved one, you really do. It's no longer 8th edition; it's 8.5 because there's been some fundamental changes to the way the game plays.
Yeah.
There's also been some, I suppose, contradictions generated by the FAQ because we've got one of the, I think it's the designer's commentary, it might be the stepping into document that says you can move a model and have it end half its move up a wall, even though the model can't be placed.
Yeah.
But then in the new FAQ, they say that can I charge a unit on a ruin if I can't place my base there? And obviously under the old answer, yes,
Yeah,
you could. Well, now you've got an answer specifically when asked that question that says, no, if you can't place the base, then you can't charge them.
Oh, wow.
So you can end your move halfway up the wall,
You just can't
but
do
you
anything.
can't charge. So it creates this really weird contradiction, which I don't really know as a TO how to resolve that other than literally what those answers are. It does mean you can get close into flamer range. It does mean you get into pistol range. It just means you can't charge them until you've cleared enough space on the actual ruin to put models there, which feels like a contradiction. And there's a few of those other little ones that have snuck in where you go, well, hang on a minute. That just doesn't make any sense because we've got an answer from something implying this, and then we've got an answer from something else telling us this. And that's probably the only rule that I've looked at and gone, what? Huh?
There are so many rules and so many different facets to the game. It's not surprising that there's a couple of little contradictions. Like, I think that we need to give them a little bit of leeway.
Look, Hock also mentions here that there's no more deep strike warp times or any of those sort of deployments, and then a psychic power or something that lets them move again. Once you're on the table, you can't do that, which is another really important change. Josh says, pants on head, veto that stupid ruling. I can't. The biggest problem with vetoing any part of this, and I've had this conversation with a couple of other TO groups I'm with, is the second that you veto one part of the document, what's to stop players then complaining about something else and vetoing something else? It feels like players as a whole, when they see this document, are going to use it in its entirety or expect that it's going to be used in its entirety at events because it creates a playing field that everyone's aware of instantly.
I think we want to be making sure that we're representing the game as it's written rather than us having our own version of it that we play at events.
Yeah, and I understand why you might choose to veto it, but at the same time, I feel like it creates more problems than it fixes, because then you have players coming to events not knowing that that's been corrected, or you're having to publish it in every player's pack that we're not using this particular paragraph on this page, and then players don't read players' packs. And,
there are 3 that do.
There's about that many. So then you have this situation where people come to the tournament expecting one thing and getting another, which leaves them disappointed. I don't feel it's in the best interests of any event to arbitrarily remove things for the sake of, I don't necessarily agree with them. There's plenty of rules that in the past we've not agreed with, and we've talked about taking out, and it creates too much of a homebrew scenario. And we already muck about with the missions to try and give a better semblance of a competitive event. I think fundamental changes like that should be left alone and left to the games writers, as opposed to us just going, well,
we know better.
Yeah, I don't know.
Good night, Josh.
He's probably not here anymore.
Oh.
Makes the events feel more official. Yeah, you're right there, and that's kind of what we're trying to get at. Is we're playing as close to the rules as possible. If we're only changing the missions, we're still playing 40k. It's it's still the same game you could go to anywhere else in the world and expect to play.
Rory, I'm going to be honest. There are times when it's halfway through round 2 when I read the players' pack. So
and she's the TO.
Yeah.
With the FAQ cycle, it could be fixed within 3 to 6 months.
Yep.
Look, they're scheduled the next one for September, because we don't have anything happening in September that could be adversely affected by another frickin' FAQ.
I don't think that's why they chose it.
No, it friggin' feels like it at the moment. It's not like we're hosting ATC and show and stuff like the 3rd week in September when, I don't know, an FAQ might.
It's all right. It's
friggin'
not
drop.
going to come till October anyway.
No, you watch. They'll do it early this time to make sure that they're not caught out late again, and it'll TOT. So I think the FAQ situation, yeah, we could see it fixed, but at this point in time, I'm not envisaging that being changed in the immediate future. We'll have at least 2, probably 3 events before we see any of those changes. It might be changed in time for Masters. Who knows? Tim says we may have early teething issues from this edition, but within 3 cycles and all the codexes, we're looking at a good product. Yeah, I agree. We should have all the codexes by end of year, or at least all the ones we're expecting by the end of the year. If rumors are true, we should have 3 more basically by the 1st or 2nd week in June, because we've got Harlequins followed by Imperial Knights followed by Deathwatch, and that only leaves about 5 other codexes. And I did work it out at one point, and we know Sisters of Battle are next year, and then you've really only got Genestealer Cult, Space Wolves, Orcs, the Inquisition, and all the Assassin variants, and maybe Sisters of Silence. So getting 3 or 4 more codexes by between the end of mid-June and December is a cakewalk. And a Nari, technically. But whether we get an Nari codex is another matter entirely. So yeah, hopefully once we get all the codexes and the indexes essentially go away, we should have a very rounded product, and hopefully they can continue to kind of keep it as a living document and make it a really positive progression of changes, as opposed to what still feels a bit knee-jerk because the game is still relatively new and we're all kind of adapting to it. Richard, this isn't heresy. We can't change it. Yeah, moving on. Hi, Mike. Welcome along. The next FAQ will drop on the 31st of August. God, I hope it's that early.
Yeah, that'd work out okay.
Why is it always referred to as fixing the FAQ? Who decides to get what ruling is broken? The players. Ultimately, if the players are vocal enough and they send emails to Games Workshop and highlight issues that are being uncovered because the playtesters can't find it. I'd love to think the playtesters are infallible, but having been part of that process for another company, it doesn't happen. There's just not enough of a pool.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I think that it's really difficult for playtesters are really thorough with what they do, but you just can't come up with every single possible scenario to be able to make sure that you've got an answer for that.
Absolutely. And on top of that, you've also got a level of known intent from the designer where when you come up with an issue, you then go back to the designer and go, seriously? Like, is this intended? And they go, oh, God, no, that's not what we mean at all. This is what we mean. And if that conversation then doesn't translate to rules on the page, the players at large then don't understand the intent.
Yeah.
We found a combination when we were playtesting book 2 of the original version of Malifaux. There was a character that essentially had a turn 1 ability that would move it into contact with your main enemy caster and kill it. Just almost every time, it would just an assassin run, take out your main caster, your leader, and then it mopped up the rest of the army pretty quickly. You could also stack it so that if the opponent had placed them all too closely together, you could basically kill the whole crew in turn 1. And we went to the designers and went, oh my God, like, holy crap, we've just played this through and it's bonkers. Obviously, this isn't intended. And they fixed that. But day one, when that book came out, that same model had another issue that we never envisaged, because the combination of factors that had to exist didn't happen in any of the practice games.
Yeah.
So ultimately, these once they're released into the public then obviously is allowed to get vocal and say, hey, this rule doesn't work. What's the intent? And that naturally leads to Games Workshop looking at the intent and how it's published and then releasing FAQs. So why does it get referred to as fixing and the rule is broken? Maybe because we all understand that it probably doesn't feel like it works the way it's meant to work, I suppose, is the best way I can describe that. And if the players don't tell the designers, then the designers go, well, we know how it's intended to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a good two-way street that we've got going at the moment. Yeah, look, and everyone's here going, orcs, 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 orcs. Yep, we're still waiting on orcs.
Are there some people who like orcs and would like a new codex for orcs?
I don't know why. They win tournaments at the moment. God, keep the index. Players look for loopholes in a competitive environment. Absolutely, they do. Part of the good part about being the Malifaux playtest was we did purposefully go looking for broken stuff, because we'd had the group of us who were doing it here in Perth had that experience of knowing what other game systems were like, and we thought we caught them all. We didn't.
Yeah, Ricky's just saying that English is an awful language to write rules in.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation today. Our eldest daughter said to me, in the word scent, which letter is silent, the S or the C?
As in the smell.
Well, yeah, I think people get it. And so, that was what she asked me, which letter is silent, the S or the C? And I said, well, obviously the C is silent because you don't say skent, do you? And, when you say scent, it's S-E-N-T, so the C must be silent. And then both she and Mike said to me, and what about cent as in the currency? Which I hadn't even thought of. I'd just gone straight to sending mail and the smell. So, what
does that say when you've gone to smell and sending mail and I've gone to money?
Yes, well. But my point is that I think that's a really good point that Richard makes there, because, what language has one word that means three totally different things?
Absolutely. So,
and how you understand what somebody's asking, their intent is one thing. How you read it or interpret it can be totally different.
Yeah, look, I definitely think that as players get access to these things, much like a car or anything else you buy, there's a reason that cars get recalls. It's because someone finds there's a problem and the manufacturer goes, you know what, we need to fix that.
Yeah.
This is kind of the same thing. They're patching it. Even like computer games where you get day one downloads that you have to have because the designers have gone, oh, damn, we stuffed that up. But I suppose it's more tangible because it's not an instantaneous update that you don't see. It's, you take your car back, you get it back, and might not necessarily be anything you see or feel. When a computer game gets updated with a patch, it might not be anything you necessarily see or feel. This is something that you can be playing a game one day and then the next day play it completely differently. And I think that's probably another tangible change that people kind of go, oh, hang on, that's, it's felt more, I suppose. I don't know if that explains it particularly well, but that's what I'm going with. I wonder how many problems the rules have in German. I don't know. I don't speak German.
No, I was just thinking but I was going to say we'll have to ask Timo, and then I thought, is he actually German or have I just made that up?
I believe he's German, but apologise if it's not the case, Timo.
Yeah.
Case in point, people are still divided on the cover rules regarding to vehicles. Yeah, look, even with the FAQ, it's still a bit of a mess, and that's probably my biggest complaint with the current 40k rules is the cover system. It is pretty straightforward now. The FAQs have made it better, but it's still my biggest complaint with the game more than anything else. I don't know what Kyle's on about. He's talking gibberish. It's late. and now everyone's confused as well. So hopefully that's been an interesting conversation to have, guys. We hope
It was a long one. Michael was like,
we'll do it quick. Yeah.
we'll just jump on and it'll be a really quick one tonight and we'll just quickly touch on this and then we'll just talk about the FAQ and it'll be nice and quick and we'll wrap it up in half an hour or an hour and a half, you know.
Hang on. Pete says the French rules for wargaming are very difficult. I can't say I'm totally shocked. I could make a joke about retreating and stuff, but I won't.
I'm sure that they sound beautiful though.
Matt Crosby. So for WATC, clarify, what are the rules for vehicles in cover? As per the rules and the FAQs, the vehicle has to be 50% obscured and within terrain. The definition of within terrain means at least partly, like it has to be touching or partly within. The obstruction to the line of sight doesn't have to be from the terrain. As per the FAQ, if you have a Land Raider touching a piece of terrain, so you've got its tracks just a little bit on the edge of a wood, and you have a Rhino parked horizontally in front of it, and you're shooting at that Land Raider from the other side of that Rhino, the Rhino obscures 50% of the Land Raider. The Land Raider is touching terrain, therefore it gains the obscured terrain bonus. So that's the way the rules are written. That's the way I've certainly read them, and everyone I've spoken to these days has read them and understood them. So if you've got that question, that's the answer. The obscurement only has to come from something, as long as you're within the terrain in the first place. What are we doing?
Carl was saying you guys are going down Tabletop Mafia. That's what he was saying before.
He's speaking Bogan.
Don't be rude. It might be late, but there's still no need for rudeness.
It wasn't rude. Show us your giant dog, we can hear it. No euphemism. Ned, I don't know what he's barking at, but
yeah. Let's hope no one's breaking in and stealing our trestle tables.
You're welcome, Matt. Yeah, hopefully it's pretty straightforward. So it also makes it easier to gain the benefits of cover for vehicles by reading it literally. If anyone's got anything else, shoot it out now. Otherwise, I'm gonna
forever hold your peace.
Yeah, we're gonna hang up and we're gonna move on.
We're gonna fix some terrain. It'll be exciting. Can't wait.
I've still got tower to finish painting.
We got terrain as well.
See, just out of camera here. Ghost kill. And another ghost kill. And another ghost kill. I've got ghost kills.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all tabletop ready, but I want to try and get more paint on them. We'll see how we go and how much other stuff I have to do or I'm allowed to do.
There's a lot of other stuff to
do. Other than that, though, guys, since we haven't seen any other comments or questions, I think we're going to call it there.
Tom, you've come just at the right time.
Can't see the ghost kills. I know they're invisible. They're completely invisible.
Mm.
And it's not spam. You're spam, Alan.
Okay, come on. Let's
I'm going to
focus.
buy him a can of spam and just label it Flyrant with Texter.
We're going to focus, and we're saying good night to all of these lovely people.
Good luck to all the teams. If you've watched this entire thing live or you've watched it as a video post-recording.
We're really sorry. You need to get out more.
We hope you we hope you have a good weekend at WATC. We will see you there, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We may be asking someone to bring caffeine for us. We'll see how the morning goes. But yeah, good luck to all the teams. We hope you have a fun day. We hope that the stress of the FAQ and some of the issues the last couple of days have presented have been all sort of laid to rest, and we hope everyone has a fun weekend.
Yeah,
we're certainly aiming for it.
Fun, so.
And then we can all move on with the glory that is 8.5 in June, because we're going to announce that next time shortly.
Can we get over Sunday before we start thinking about June?
No, we can't. Everyone's doing it already.
Oh my God.
Have I checked all those trestle tables? That's a very good point, Pete. After the debacle of my tower, that's a very good point. We might have to put them up. My tower had an accident.
Okay, I am literally about to have an explosion of tournament organisers Tourette. And the two words that are going to come out start and end with F.
All right,
you
guys.
Come round and check them, Pete. I'm home all day tomorrow.
He's got stuff to paint. He can't come round.
Right, then you can keep quiet.
Good luck with any painting over the next few days as well, guys. If you've got any other questions, you're more than welcome to shoot them through. Obviously, our frequency online is going to drop off over the next couple of days while we get all this stuff done.
Or we'll be procrastinating. Yeah. We'll be on here
Quite possibly. But Hock, mate, awesome. We will we'll definitely be in touch. But guys, enjoy the next few days pre-event.
Try and get some sleep Saturday night. As much as we do want all of the armies to be tabletop ready, we need you guys to get some sleep so that you are, safe to drive.
Yeah.
We're not going to be getting much sleep, but we are going to be aiming for some so that we're safe to drive as well.
Yeah, guys, stay safe. And obviously, if it's raining, there's going to be wet roads, and it's going to make it harder as well when you're tired and exhausted from the day on the way home. So
also trying to drive, holding onto your model while the glue dries.
that's what your shoelaces are for.
Yeah.
I wish I'd gotten a photo of that day. That was amazing.
Sadly, that was a really long time ago before camera phones.
Well, that was before kids.
Yeah, which was before camera phones. Okay.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Stay safe. We will see you Sunday, and you can look forward to hopefully some videos from that day as well. But if not, shortly afterwards.
If you're not playing and you have specific questions that you would like for me to be asking to players while the day is happening, shoot them through. I will try and ask them.
But otherwise...
Dog's going again.
Yeah, the dog's going again. Anyway, we will catch you all soon. Cheers, guys.